Rik Oostenbroek. I just like to call myself a colorful abstract artist or something like that. I think that labels it and sums it up nicely. I live in Hilversum, the Netherlands. It's not hectic. You can walk around in nature without like traveling for an hour or so. There's barely a rush hour. My family lives around here. There are 90,000 people living in Hilversum. It's chill. I mean, like, it's chill. There's not much noise around. And if you want the noise, like, it's just 20 minutes to Amsterdam. And there you have your noise. There you have the hectic touristic streets and all that stuff. And in Hilversum, it's just like super low key, and that's how I like it. It's so stereotyped Dutch, but I vibe with my bike a lot. I love it. It's very hard to put myself into a bucket because I touch lots of like things in design. I do graphic design, like typography and stuff like that. I work a lot with abstract. I do 3D, I do 2D, I do animation, I paint. So I create things, colorful things for a living for over 15 years now. It was in primary school that I started to mess around with Microsoft Paint, you know, like the 2D version of it. I think it was Windows 98 or something like that. And that was during the time that you had Napster and LimeWire and all those programs, and you could burn your own CDs, but they needed a cover, you know, like it was all just like a senseless bunch of MP3s. So I labeled them Ricky's Top Hits, and then I drew in Paint like weird faces with weird hairs. And that's my first, like, looking back, that's my first touch point with like expressing my creativity to the world. I never went to art school. I taught everything myself in my own way. So maybe that's also the reason, because like in art school, probably everybody is chasing the same steps. Like teacher says this, so you do it that way. For me, like I truly found my own way. I have quite an unorthodox way of working, I would say, because like I grew up doing this in a time that there were no tutorials online. And it wasn't just like YouTube, I want to learn how to do this, and you have 12,000 of videos explaining that. So I did everything my own way, and I actually still maintain that. For all 3D work, I use so much Photoshop. It's crazy. Like, I'm the worst 3D artist out there. Because I simply recreate a lot in Photoshop. I do all colors in Photoshop. I brush over it like a maniac. But that's maybe also what makes my style more unique, because like everybody is always trying to finesse everything in 3D and make it as perfect, as close to perfect as possible. And I simply don't like going so much into detail. And I'm like, oh, fuck it. I'm cool with 3D part. Let's see what we can do with it in Photoshop. I became father 7 months ago. My son is called Pep, P-E-P, but his initials are PSD because, yeah, sorry, I'm still doing Photoshop on a daily basis. And actually, like, when me and my girlfriend got together, I was like, yo, there's one thing you should know, and that Photoshop is always #1 for me. When I walk out here, I always feel some like sense of rest. Like I also like to have music on, like or a podcast or whatever. And it's just like, okay, I'm out of my work rhythm, like my workaholic thing, like, and that's good to balance that out a little bit. Colors in nature, and especially like transitions or how light reacts on a leaf or flower, color transition of flower, color transition in the sky. I'm always super amazed by that, like by the texture it gives, like how forces like influence colors and light bounces and stuff like that. I always find it amazing. Whenever I start working, I barely start with an idea. I like to keep things like go with the flow, I would almost say. just throw some paint on the canvas and start like brushing them out, you know, like and see how fluent, like organic color transitions are built in real life, and photograph them, use them as a texture in either 2D or 3D, blend them in with typography, with photography even. Like I really like that. Plus, it's also that feeling that like everything you've created there was made by you. With abstract art, everyone has his own interpretation of the work. Like it's not some conceptual topic with robots. Oh, it's a robot eating a tree, for instance. Like you can really like let people watch it and not understanding it, but still finding it beautiful. My work lives on screens, and what I love about that is that like everybody has a screen with them nowadays. Like my main clients the past years, I would say, were like doing wallpapers for phones. So people had my shit on the background of their phone, which was amazing. Like millions and millions of people saw Rik without knowing me. My first paid job, of course, you did flyers for events like locally in Hilversum when there was like a hockey club organized a party. They were like, "Yo, Rik, you can Photoshop, make it," and I got free drinks all night. You know, that was good. But the first legit job was for Volkswagen actually, and I was 17 years old, and I was still living at my parents. They were like, "Yo, you want to do this custom artwork for Volkswagen?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I was amazed. And they gave me 1,200 euros for that, and I was like, holy shit, like this is legit. Like and that was a moment that triggered me. For me, collaborations with brands are like dope. They're just like always like, "Hey Rik, dope stuff you got. We want you to do something for us." And I'm like, "Okay, what do you guys want? Do whatever." You know, like those are the coolest gigs, and it's so nice to realize that that people trust you, that people are paying your bills by believing in who you are, like the artist as a person, of course, as well, but mainly in my work, and that's like rad. My grandma's 96 and lives around the corner, and it's funny. Because like I realized like my grandfather passed away sadly, so they had lots of influence on my like perspective. I went to the island because they had a house there. I went to the nature over here, to the heath, because they live across the woods, you know, like it was all super nearby. It was in a small circle. And we spent lots of time there, like me and my sister growing up. So yeah, she still doesn't really have a clue what I do, but she supports me nonetheless.
Nee.
Het is wel mijn 11e achterkleinkind.
Ja, dat is wel heel veel, hè? Dat is wel heel veel.
Ja, dat heb je als je zo oud wordt.
Nee, zeker.
You know, like if I would have lived like on the other side of the ocean, like in the US, living my American dream, like this wouldn't have been possible, you know. That was also a thing, when to just chase your career and live for that, while there are many more important things around you as well that can also give you like positive vibes, you know. Well, right now I'm really looking around, like what's gonna be the next move? What am I gonna experiment with? I try to do things like in the physical, like are there any objects I could make for my work, like in the physical, to be featured in a museum? Or am I going like the photography film direction? But I'm more and more leaning towards something like to bring my work to life, like not just living on the screen, you know, like in whatever sense, either like 3D print stuff, paint stuff, you know, like going to that physical direction. That would be really cool. And also like, I hope one day I could be in a museum, but I'm sure that's quite ambitious, but it would be cool.